can download them or somebody can offload them so we can just have them somewhere.
Okay.
And just if you want to make a BROGA email, a Gmail, or something like that, so it's not my personal, and I'll, yeah, all we probably need is a couple terabytes.
Inhale, exhale. Slow the breath down.
Is this it? Can y'all hear it?
It's now you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to BROGA. As you guys know, we do a quick reflection. Normally, we use the Bible verse, but not always. This is actually decidedly unreligious. This is about reflecting what we want to be, kind of tuning our spirits into as we're getting into BROGA for the day. So the reflection today is inspired by a friend of mine who has an executive coach, and she's an entrepreneur. And she was telling me we were on vacation. Our families were on vacation a little while ago together. And she said she was telling about her experience with her coach. She said her coach asked her a really challenging question, said, what would it take for you to feel free? And that's just such a powerful question. We talked about that a lot. And I think that's something that, I think if you're a good coach, that's those are the kind of questions you ask. You ask the types of questions that are going to make your clients really spend some time and weeks and thinking about it and pondering it. And so as I thought about it, this quote came to mind. This is from Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, which was published in 1933. And the quote is, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. So that was also, this whole conversation and thought pattern was also inspired. Morgan's not on, but Morgan and Seeth, if you guys ever get a chance, and maybe we can put it in the BROGA chat. They did an interview on NBC. Ian, who's also not on, is a producer for the Today Show, and they were doing a segment on black dads of black boys. And so Seeth and Morgan were both on. And one of the things that I remember from Morgan's time on the show there is he sort of said toward the end of his show, end of his segment, almost as an aside, I see my job as helping to protect my black boys' sense of freedom. That, we need to raise our boys and give them the talk and all those things and keep them safe. But a lot of times I think what we don't think about is how do we do so and do it in a way where we still allow our black boys to feel and grow into manhood with a sense of freedom. And I think that's, it's both timeless and timely, given, I don't know how many of y'all watched the last presidential debate. This concept of the talk actually came up during that debate. I want to share a quick story. During that vacation I told you guys about, we're at this somewhat, higher end resort in Destin, Florida. And I dropped my wife and daughter off. They're at the pool and I'm coming behind, right? I'm doing the dad thing. I'm carrying all this stuff, whatever, right? So I get to the gate and you need a key card to get into the gate. But my wife has a key card and I can see her. So I'm waving to her, hey, come bring me the key card, right? So a couple of white people walk by as I'm walking in and they open the gate and go, oh, yeah, come on in. And in my mind, I just said, wait a minute, you know what? Stop. I said, no, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm waving to my wife to come bring the card. And she's like, well, why didn't you let any of those other people just let you in? But maybe it shouldn't have. But what came to my mind, I'm the only black man in this whole setup, right? All it would take is somebody to see me walk through without swiping a key card, go say something to security. Next thing you know, security's over there. Maybe they come to me respectfully. Maybe they come acting a fool. And now it's an issue. So you know what? Shouldn't have to think that way. And maybe shouldn't have been thinking that way. But for me, I felt it was just easier to not even get into that whole situation. So we've always got to be like on our guard about stuff like that, right? But to be clear, the challenges to our freedom as black men do not begin or end with what some white folks gonna do or think about us at some resort when we're out somewhere. My biggest challenges to my freedom growing up were unfortunately from a lot of the black folks that I grew up around who loved me. I genuinely believe they loved me, but their way of showing me love was in many ways to try to control my thinking. You know, and I suspect, like many of us here on this Zoom, I'm, you know, looking at folks, and I know some of y'all know some of the stories. You know, I didn't fit into whatever pre-subscribed notions of what a black boy, how a black boy was supposed to carry himself, handle himself, speak, etc. You know, so you know, there are people in my life who I really looked up to and who I do love, and I genuinely believe they love me. You know, they call me some of the most vile things that you can call a person, especially a little boy. But among all the things that I remember being called, the one that sticks out the most is being called a little white boy, right? Because I carried myself a certain way. They said, well, you act like a white boy. Am I the only one? I know I'm not the only one, right? I know almost everybody on here has probably heard that. And what I realize now that I didn't realize, I see you, Lance, putting two hands and a foot up. You know, what I didn't understand then, what I understand now is that unfortunately a lot of folks in our families and folks we love have been through so much pain and injury and insult from the broader community that they oftentimes sort of as a self-protective mechanism form this sort of cocoon of we're going to insulate ourselves and only act and carry ourselves in a certain way. And that insulates them from this, you know, harsher, broader world. But along the way of doing that, which I get and I understand, some black folks have become a different kind of judgmental and oppressive to our own folks, especially those of us who show up differently than what somebody's decided that black boys are supposed to show up. Sorry, I'm being set. All right. So for sorry. I'm getting updates that right now my printer software wants to update. Really? Stop. All right. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
Right. So, you know, so for a black person to be free in the world, we have to fight two fronts. We got to fight against this sort of broader white world that tells us, you know, you're only supposed to be a certain way and only aspire to a certain level. And then we have to fight on our own, sort of our own backyard of black folks who really, although they love us, they're trying to instill in us psychological shackles of this manufactured definition of what it means to be a black man. So against that backdrop, I want to share three things that I thought about as I thought about what does it take to be free and what is the nature of freedom. Number one, freedom is dangerous. All right, our freedom is dangerous to all the people who would want to, you know, put us in a box. And I think about it like this. Leland's on, right? I saw Leland. Leland's a writer. So Leland knows this very, very well, right? So, you know, it's almost
Leland
like
is
somebody
on.
wrote a script.
That's funny.
And they wrote the script and they already decided from the beginning how the story's going to end, who gets to be the hero, who gets to be the damsel, all these different things were already decided, right? And here we come messing up the script because we want to be free and we want to live our own lives and we want to be authentic. You know, probably the best and worst example of this is something I read in one of the comments of like a New York Times article, and y'all know, we all ought to know, don't read the comments, right? But I read the comments. It was an article maybe a year or so ago. It was about I lose track which unarmed police shooting, right? And so somebody wrote, they said, I don't see any protesters. What I see is a bunch of outdated farm equipment behaving badly. They're talking about black folks. Outdated farm equipment. See, that's the role we were supposed to play in the script. And if we had stayed playing that role and we hadn't outgrown that role, we'd be fine. Nobody would have a problem. But nobody told you, Lance, that you could be an artist or, you know, a creator, an entrepreneur, a builder, a dentist, a doctor, a writer. Nobody said all these things were okay, a lawyer, or whatever else it is that your heart desires. And that's the second thing I want to tell you all about freedom. Our freedom is a responsibility. Howard Thurman was once asked this question about what does the world need in terms of young people, in terms of careers. And his response, I loved it. He said, what you should do is do whatever it is that makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And so I believe genuinely that we have a responsibility to our ancestors and to our unborn grandchildren to come alive, to find and to do whatever that thing is that makes you feel like you are alive, that you are a part of that ever unfolding legacy. And just to put it more bluntly as I believe that it needs to be said, we just don't have time to be concerned about what other people think we should be doing. We've got so much work to do. We can't afford the distraction, frankly. And in fact, I found that to be a good barometer in my life whenever I find myself getting, pulled into other people's drama, getting distracted or whatever. I know I need to refocus on the things that I'm supposed to be working on, the things that I'm supposed to do. And that's the third thing that I want to share with you about freedom. Freedom is as freedom does. There's a Marcus Garvey speech. I listen a lot of times when I'm just late night washing the dishes or whatever. I'll, put on a sermon or a speech in my headphones. And this is one of my favorites. Marcus Garvey gave this speech, I think it was in 1924, called Look for Me in the Whirlwind. I'll read this really quickly. This is just a snippet that I like. It says, any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend on another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own to make ourselves free men. Babylon did it, Assyria did it, France under Napoleon did it, Germany under Prince von Bismarck did it, England did it, America under George Washington did it. But this is where Marcus Garvey, we all think about Marcus Garvey as being so encouraging, but he was also very hard-edged. This is what he said. He said, Africa with 400 million Black people can do it. If you cannot do it, if you are not prepared to do it, then you will die. You race of cowards, you race of imbeciles, you race of good-for-nothings. If you cannot do what other men have done, what other nations have done, what other races have done, then you had better die. Freedom is a responsibility. Freedom comes with some homework. Alternatively, to quote another one of our great Black leaders, Brother Marshawn Lynch, he said, I'm about that action, boss. Freedom is about that action, boss. Which brings me to one of my favorite verses, and you guys will probably have heard me use this one, Deuteronomy 6:11. It talks about us being, the way I interpreted, us being the head, the heart, the hands of God in this world to bring about the promise of a city with wells that our children did not dig. And, to go even further with it, you hear people talk about our children having warming themselves by fires that they did not build, resting under the shade of trees that they did not plant. And so, again, I go back to these same verses over and over. I probably only have, honestly, and y'all have been doing BROGA with us for a while, probably already know, I only got about 15 snippets that I work, but they work for me. And as a woman who taught me ministry, Dr. Barbara King would always say, and I believe she got this from the woman who taught her ministry, Johnny Coleman, it works if you work. And so that is my intention today. I intend to work my freedom. So today, our intention together that I pray that you will join me in is, as ever, that our BROGA practice will be a living, breathing metaphor for our life practice, that our time on the mat today will be a time of reflecting, a time of restoring, and a time of recharging. So that we can leave our time together today refreshed and renewed. And as we breathe in a life-giving sense of what it means to be free, let us exhale all those scripts and playbooks that other folks have written for our lives as we stretch our bodies into positions that we may not be able to reach just yet. Let us likewise stretch our souls this week beyond where we thought our limits were. And as we struggle and work and push ourselves and each other over the next hour, let us remember that our freedom has never been free. People who loved us, though they would never meet us, worked for our freedom, they fought for our freedom, and yes, many died for our freedom. Now, brothers, it's our time. In the names of both our ancestors and our unborn grandchildren, amen, ashe, namaste.